Welcome. It's great to have you tuning in to What in the World is Going On. What's going on, folks? The podcast where we dive deep into news that impacts society. I'm your host, Burl McQueen, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Each episode, we'll be bringing you fascinating interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and valuable insight from experts in their field. Whether you're a seasoned enthusiast or just getting started, this show is for you. Here at What in the World is Going On, our mission is to inform, entertain, and inspire you on your life's journey. We'll be covering a wide range of world community-related subjects, from the latest news to personal stories and advice. So grab your favorite beverage, get cozy, and prepare to embark on an exciting journey with us. Remember, this podcast is a conversation, and we want to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us on social media or through our podcast with your questions, comments, and suggestions for future episodes. All right, enough talking from me. Let's dive into today's episode and get this party started. Thank you for joining me on What in the World is Going On. What's going on, folks? Sit back, relax, and let's begin the show. In today's show, we'll discuss Africa's development in the 21st century. And please do not forget to subscribe. Africa Talking Points. Economic development. Many African countries are focusing on economic growth and development through initiatives such as infrastructure projects, education reform, and investment in technology sectors. What kind of economic growth is Africa doing, you might ask? Well, as of the current date, Africa as a whole has been experiencing various levels of economic growth. While some countries in Africa have been seeing significant economic development and growth in recent years, others are facing challenges that are hindering their growth potential. Factors such as political stability, corruption, resource dependency, and lack of infrastructure can impact the economic growth of African countries. It's important to analyze the specific economic indicators and trends of individual African countries to get a clear understanding of their economic performance. 2. Economic conflict resolution. Several regions in Africa are experiencing conflicts and political unrest, and efforts are being made to find peaceful resolutions through diplomatic means, negotiations, and peacekeeping operations. Regions in Africa that are experiencing conflict resolutions as of the current dates, July 2024. Some regions in Africa, that have experienced are experiencing conflicts and may be undergoing resolution efforts include 1. Sudan. The conflict in Sudan has been ongoing for many years, particularly in Darfur, South Kordofan, and the Blue Nile regions. Efforts to achieve peace and stability in Sudan have been made through negotiations, peace talks, and agreements between the governments and rebel groups. 2. South Sudan. South Sudan has faced internal conflict since gaining independence in 2011. Efforts to resolve the conflict has been ongoing through peace agreements and negotiations between different factions within the country. 3. Somalia. Somalia has been plagued by conflict and instability for decades, with ongoing efforts to establish a stable government and address internal conflicts between different groups and clans. 4. Democratic Republic of the Congo, the DRC. The DRC has experienced conflicts and violence in various regions, particularly in the eastern part of the country. Peace efforts and negotiations have been made to address the root causes of the conflict and promote stability in the region. 5. Mali. Mali has faced internal conflicts, particularly in the northern region, due to insurgency and terrorism activity. Efforts to resolve the conflict has involved international peacekeeping missions and negotiations between the government and rebel groups. These are just a few examples of regions in Africa that have faced conflicts and are undergoing or have undergone efforts toward resolutions. Please note that the situation in each region is complex and ongoing, with progress varying over time. 3. Governance and democracy. The promotion of good governance democracy, and human rights remain a key priority in many African countries, with efforts to strengthen institutions, increase public participation, and combat corruption. The promotion of government, democracy, and human rights in Africa. Promoting government, democracies, and human rights in Africa is essential for fostering stability, sustainable development, and respect for individual freedoms across the continent. Here are some strategies that are being employed to advance these important goals. 1. Capacity building. Providing training and resources to government officials, civil society organizations, and citizens to strengthen their understanding of democratic principles, human rights laws, and good governance practices. 2. Institutional building. Supporting the establishment and strengthening of democratic institutions such as independent judiciaries, electoral bodies, and human rights commissions to ensure accountability and transparency in governance. 3. Election monitoring. Supporting and conducting independent monitoring of elections to ensure they are free, fair, and transparent, helping to build trust in the democratic process. 4. Civil society engagement. Engaging and encouraging the participation of civil society organizations, including human rights groups, in policy-making process and decision-making to ensure diverse voices are heard and rights are protected. Rules of law. Number 5. Promoting the rule of law by supporting legal reforms, providing legal aid services, and advocating for an independent and impartial judiciary to ensure justice and accountability for all. 6. Anti-corruption measures. Implementing measures to combat corruption within government institutions and promote transparency and accountability in public sectors operation. 7. Education and awareness. Conducting public awareness campaigns and educational programs to inform citizens about their rights, responsibilities, and the importance of democratic values. 8. International cooperation. Collaborating with international organizations, donors, countries, and regional bodies to provide support and expertise in promoting government, democracy, and human rights in Africa. By adopting a comprehensive approach that addresses political, social, and economic factors, progress can be made toward achieving greater governmental effectiveness, democratic governance, and the protection of human rights across Africa. 4. Climate and environmental concerns. African nations are increasingly dealing with the impact of climate, such as extreme weather events and environmental degradation. Many countries are taking steps to mitigate these effects and promote sustainability. What is Africa doing regarding climate change? Africa, like many regions around the world, is actively addressing the challenges posed by climate change. Here are some key initiatives and actions being undertaken by African countries. 1. Commitment to international agreements. African countries have signed on to international agreements such as the Paris Agreement, demonstrating their commitment to combating climate change on a global scale. Also with China and Russia. 2. Renewable energy expansion. Many African nations are investing in renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydropower to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and decrease greenhouse gas emissions. 3. Adaptation programs. Given the vulnerability of many African nations to the impact of climate change, adaptation programs are being implemented to build resilience in areas such as agriculture, water resource management, and infrastructure development. Afforestation and reforestation are very important in Africa. Efforts to combat deforestation and promote afforestation and reforestation are underway in various African countries to enhance carbon sequestration and preserve biodiversity. 5. Climate change or climate smart agriculture. Implemented climate-smart agriculture practices to improve food security, increase resilience to climate change, and reduce emissions from the agricultural sector. 6. Natural resource management, policies and practices aimed at sustainable management of natural resources, including water resources, forests, and biodiversity, are being implemented to mitigate the impact of climate change. 7. Capacity building. African countries are investing in building capacity, knowledge sharing, and technology transfer to enhance their abilities to address climate change challenges effectively. While significant progress being made, there are still challenges to overcome, including limited financial resources, capacity restraint, and the need for sustained international collaboration. Continued efforts and support from the international community are crucial to address the impacts of climate change in Africa and ensure a sustainable future for the continent. Regional integration. African countries are working toward greater regional integration through initiatives such as the African Union and the African Continental Free Trade Area, which aim to promote trade, economic cooperation, and political unity across the continent. What is Africa doing regarding regional integration, you might ask? Africa is actively pursuing regional integration as a strategy approach to foster economic growth, development, and stability on the continent. Here are some key initiatives and efforts in that regard. Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which came into effect in January 2021, aimed to create a single continental market for goods and services with free movement of businesses, persons, and investments. This initiative seeks to boost intra-Africa trade, enhance competitiveness, and drive economic growth. 2. Regional economic communities. Africa has several regional economic communities such as the East African Community, the Economic Community of West Africa States, and Southern African Development Community. These regional groupings work together, deepening economic integration, promoting trade, and fostering political cooperation among member states. 3. Infrastructure development. African countries are investing in regional infrastructure projects such as transportation networks, energy grid, and digital connectivity to enhance connectivity and facilitate trade and movement of goods and people across borders. Harmonization of policies and regulations efforts are underway to harmonize policies, regulatory frameworks, and standards across African countries to facilitate trade, investment, and cooperation within the region. 5. Peace and security cooperation. African countries are collaborating on peace and security initiatives to address conflicts, promote stability, and create an enabling environment for regional integration efforts. 6. Capacity building and institutional strengthening. Capacity building programs and institutional reforms are being pursued to enhance the effectiveness of regional integration mechanisms and ensure their successful implementation. Overall, Africa's drive toward regional integration is aimed at promoting economic development, enhancing competitiveness, and fostering regional unity and cooperation for the collective benefits of the continent.